What if I told you the world isn't turning against the United States? It's just quietly moving around it. While Washington threatens tariffs, Canada and Europe are doing something very different. They are redesigning global trade. Nearly 40 countries across Europe, the Indo-Pacific and the Americas are integrating trading systems that work just fine without US participation. This didn't start as an anti-American project. It started as a response to a massive miscalculation, and Canada is right at the center of that response. Today we're breaking down this story into four parts. First, the tariff strategy that backfired. Second, how Canada and Europe stepped into leadership. Third, the system's design most people don't understand yet. And finally, why this will leave the United States increasingly isolated. Let's start with the mistake that set everything in motion. From a Canadian-European perspective, tariffs were supposed to be leverage, threatened to limit access to the US market, force concessions and keep everybody in line. That was the theory, but there's a basic rule in economics. When access becomes unpredictable, people build alternatives. That's exactly what happened here. Under Donald Trump, tariffs stopped being a policy tool and became a political weapon. Allies didn't just see higher cost, they saw instability. Today is steel. Tomorrow it's auto, next week it's something else. And once businesses start thinking like that, the damage is already done. Trump thought his tariffs would intimidate middle power, but he was wrong. His terror did the opposite. He pushed countries to coordinate and respond. Not loudly, not politically, but methodically. This wasn't about ideology, it was about survival. Now this is where the story changes. Canada stopped reacting and started building. Under Mark Carney, Ottawa leaned into a role most people didn't expect. The role of a connector. Canada, under the leadership of Mark Carney, a gifted economist, began quietly working with Brussels, Tokyo, Singapore and Canberra to link existing trading system into something much bigger. Europe, for its part, was already moving. The EU had learned a hard lesson. If trade policies in Washington can swing every 4 years, Europe must need to insulate from it. So instead of begging for stability, Europe began to diversify with stable partners. Within this effort, Canada and the EU found common ground very fast. Both are middle powers, both rely on export, both need predictable rules, and both realize something important. If they move together, they wouldn't need to wait for Washington anymore. Now here's the part almost no one talks about. This isn't about speeches, it's about paperwork, especially the rule of origin. This rule decides where a product belongs, its economic nationality. Right now, trade agreements work in silos. A part made in Japan might trigger tariffs if assembled in Canada and sold in Germany. That friction costs money, so Canada and its partners are pushing something far more powerful. Cumulation. Cumulations means this. If a product is made anywhere inside the block, it's treated as if it was made everywhere inside the block. A battery cell, partly made in Quebec, finished in Japan, assembled in Mexico and sold in Germany, under the cumulation rules, moves freely. No US input, no US approval, and most important, no US leverage. This is happening through agreements linking the European Union with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP. That includes Canada, Japan, Australia, Mexico, Vietnam, and others. At Europe's 27 member states, and you're looking at nearly 40 countries and about 1.5 billion people. This isn't just about trade deals, it's in trade ecosystem, my friends. Here's the part Washington is underestimating. Companies don't wait for threats to become real. They move early. And once supply chains move, they don't come back. Manufacturers are already restructuring to operate fully inside the Canada-EU Indo-Pacific corridor. Why? Because predictability beats size. If you can reach 1.5 billion consumers without worrying about sudden tariffs, that's where you invest. That's where factories get built. That's where standards are set. Once that happens, US regulations lose their grip. Trump threats don't create fear anymore. American certifications become optional. American markets access become a bonus, not a requirement. That's how power erodes. Now add one more piece. Europe's trade agreement with India. The mother of all deals. Two massive economies linking up after years of negotiation. Tariffs slashed. Market access expanded widely. Labor mobility improved. That deal alone reshapes global trade. But when you combine it with Canada's bridge between Europe and the Indo-Pacific, something much bigger emerges. A global network that spans Europe, Asia and the Americas. That is a huge consumer mass. And most importantly, without United States control. For decades, the US was the hub of global trade. Rules came from Washington. Supply chains passed through American markets. Access to the US meant leverage everywhere else. That era is fading fast. Not because America is weak, no, but because it chooses unpredictability, chaos and terror over partnership. From a Canadian perspective, we have to think self-preservation. From a European perspective, risk management. And all in all, it is adaptation. So here's the bottom line. What's happening right now, it's a foundation being laid. Canada isn't waiting anymore. Europe isn't paralyzed anymore, and global trade isn't organizing itself around the US anymore. Now I would like to hear from you. If you think back just about 6 months ago, could you have imagined how groundbreakingly and positive Canada would change in record time? If you want analysis that follows where power is actually moving and not where politicians tell you it is, hit like, subscribe and share this video with someone who still thinks tariffs win trade wars, because once trade system changes, history follows. Thanks for watching. I'm Wilfried Lemkuller with Europe Curious. See you in the next one.